Ready? Ready. You know, there's a story of a guy, I saw it, a guy who gave a shiur, right? All the kids in the class, all the bochrim, when the Rav walked in, so they all came and they put their tape recorders on the table. And then little by little, the kids walked out of the class. They figured they'll have the shiur on the tape recorder. The Rav was smarter than all of them, because when they all left, he took out his recorder and he played it on the table. He let everyone hear his shiur from the tape, and he walked out too. This is what we got here, right?
We'll see.
Can you imagine a Abaye sitting in front of the shiur? Right? Here we go. You can't make a chasana without a photographer, right? The photographer says, okay, you stay, now you can do this now. Okay. We're ready? Good evening. Agitya Shalom Aleichem to everyone. My name is Chaim Kramer. I'm involved with Breslov now over 60 years. Over 60 years. So you could say I've been there, done that, seen it all, and I still wonder about the beauty of what Rebbe Nachman has to teach. 60 years later, I still wonder at it, I look at it, I find it amazing. Rebbe Nachman has in Chaim Aran, the Sefer Chaim Aran, he writes, he says that there'll come a time when people will want me very much. When I first saw that some 60 years ago, I didn't have doubts. I always believed, but I didn't see it happening. At that time, I lived in Borough Park in a Hasidic shtibel, and nobody heard of Rebbe Nachman. Right? As I went through yeshiva, there were a few people who heard of Rebbe Nachman, yeah, but they all made fun of it. They all looked down on it. What's this Rebbe Nachman? What's this Breslov? What? So, when the explosion happened in the 70s, people all of a sudden started seeking Rebbe Nachman. And in the 80s, and now the 90s, when Uman opened up, last year, when we first started Uman in 1989, the first year, there were 1,000 people there. 1,000 people. Last year, there was some 70,000 people visited Uman. 70,000 people came from all parts of the globe, from Australia, South America, South Africa, North America, Europe, all over, even Russia. Russia itself. We had 70,000, over 70,000 people. And I wonder, I said, Rebbe Nachman saw this happening. I didn't, as a kid. But Baruch Hashem, I'm alive still to see it happen now. And it's very incredible. But the questions always come up, I always get asked, and I'll say this quite simply. There are a lot of people who I've convinced to come to Uman Rosh Hashanah, and they tell me, but I have my wife, my children, you know, what am I supposed to do? And they said, I broke up more than one marriage over this, but I got you back together again at the end. So whatever will be, right, the first question a lot of people ask, how do I leave my family Rosh Hashanah? What about chinuch for my children? Shofar, Rosh Hashanah, Tashlich, what's it all about? Well, let's go back to Chazal, all right? We'll blame Chazal for everything. Kramer says that they used to blow the shofar on Shabbos in the Beis HaMikdash. Only in the Beis HaMikdash, when Rosh Hashanah came on Shabbos. But after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah, Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was the head of Sanhedrin, he made a takana that you can blow shofar wherever there's a bezdin. Wherever a Jewish court or a rabbinical court will gather for Rosh Hashanah, you can blow the shofar there too. Right? The Rif, the great Sephardic posek from 1,000 years ago, used to blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah. The Torah brings this. Why? Because he said, we're the Bezdin HaGodol. We're Bezdin. We can do it. So the Rif used to... What Rebbe Nachman of Breslov brings out over this is that the custom of traveling to the tzaddikim on Rosh Hashanah is not new. It goes back to Chazal. It goes back to the Rishonim. It's thousands of years old, over 1,000 years old, this custom of traveling to tzaddikim Rosh Hashanah. Nowadays, it's not so hard. You get into a car, a taxi, you get to the airport, you fly there wherever you're going, and you're there for Rosh Hashanah. In the old days, it was horse and buggy, right? At best, it was horse and buggy, at best. And you used to travel for a week, 10 days, for a few hundred miles. And you used to come, what they say in Yiddish, oisgerissen. You were broken, splintered apart from the travel of the horse and buggy, right? So, it's a very old custom. The Baal Shem HaKadosh, they used to travel to the tzaddikim. Today, frankly, right, a friend of mine, Rebbe Nachman from LA, he was on a flight to Uman, Rosh Hashanah, and he had a couple of guys from the Aguda with him. And they were traveling to the city of Lvov to do some kiruv work, Rosh Hashanah. And they said to him, he says, how can you go to Uman, leave your family and wife? These guys were doing the same thing, right? But they were arguing with him, how do you go to Uman, Rosh Hashanah? So the question is, why do we go to Uman, Rosh Hashanah? What's it all about? So let's start with that, and then we'll lead into the ideas. Anyone here could maybe wiggle their big toe? Could you wiggle your big toe? Yeah? The Gemara says, Rosh Hashanah nigzor ma yehei b'sofer. On Rosh Hashanah, it is decreed what's going to happen at the end of the year. The command to wiggle your toe comes from your brain. It works its way down to the toe, and it wiggles. But it starts at the brain, at the head. Rosh Hashanah is a Rosh, a head. Whatever is going to happen to us during the entire year is written down that first day, Rosh Hashanah. It's all there. It's all ready for us, right? You don't really have to think too much in December or in April or whatever, because it's all written out. Your life is mapped out for you on Rosh Hashanah. So how do I make sure that my Rosh Hashanah is good so that the rest of the year is also good? How can I make sure that whatever is going to happen to me during the year, I'm going to be connected to Hashem from the start? And that's Rosh Hashanah. So I put myself on the line and I say, I got to have the best Rosh Hashanah I can. That's how I wiggle my toe, or that's how I get through Elul, which is the end of the year. How do I get through Elul? I remember when I was learning in yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, on Chav Ches Elul, 28 Elul, there was a bus accident, and a yeshiva kid was killed. And my Rosh Yeshiva said, see what happens? Rosh Hashanah, this was written down. You don't know what's going to happen till the very end. Point is that we want to have a good year. How do you have a good year? Right? Well, you're going before the judge. Don't you want a good lawyer to stand on your behalf? Don't you want an excellent Who's that guy? What's his name? Bronfman? Out in the... Huh?
Ben Bronfman.
Dave Bronfman? Ben Bronfman. Right? When a guy is really in trouble, they call on this guy Ben Bronfman, right? When a guy is really in trouble, they call the best kind of lawyers they can have. So we call on a tzaddik, whoever your tzaddik is. Today, all the Hasidus, they all go to their Rebbe, Rosh Hashanah, not just Breslov. You're a Chosid, you go. All the Litvishit today, all the Misnagdim against the Hasidim, they all go to the Rosh Hashiva for Rosh Hashanah, right? Who leave behind the wife and the children. It's not easy. It's never pleasant, especially my son. Tzvi is not here. Good. My son Tzvi, had the habit of Rosh Hashanah causing damage. Broke his 2 front teeth. He did a few other things. While I was away in Uman, he was doing these things. So it's never easy when you leave behind the wife and children. Never. But what you have to know is that you are traveling on behalf of your family to go to Rebbe Nachman, the best lawyer that we could have. Why is he the best lawyer? A Rebbe, the word Rebbe is the acrostic of the words, the Rosh Hashanah, Rosh B'nai Yisrael, the head, the leader of Klal Yisrael. Right? Rebbe Nachman manages to reach out to tens, dozens, hundreds, thousands, myriads of people, and he goes into their heart and he speaks to them about there's you and there's Hashem. Don't think anything else. There's Hashem and you. You have to relate to Hashem, and Hashem will always relate to you. So how are you going to do it? Rebbe Nachman keeps this up throughout his writings. He speaks to many, many people of all walks of life. Rebbe Nachman once said that wherever there's something good, he ends up coming to me. Another place he said, there are people that come to me where Sheol Tachtis is pretty good for them. Sheol Tachtis is called the lowest level of Gehenna. He said for them, it's really too good for them, for whatever they did during their lives. So you have a spectrum from end to end, and all the people in between. When you go to Uman, you see this spectrum. You see all these different types of people. You see all the different people that are thinking there is a God, there is Hashem. Where and how do I relate to Him? How? So Rebbe Nachman, as a Rosh B'nai Yisrael, as a leader, right? The higher you are, the greater you are, the closer your connection to Hashem. Now, when we say that what happens at the end of the year starts in the beginning, Rebbe Nachman said, I take care of my people the first night, Rosh Hashanah. The first night. It's a known tradition or story in Breslov. Rebbe Nachman used to pray 4 hours Shemona Esrei the first night of Rosh Hashanah. 4 hours. Right? The people would daven in shul. They go home, eat, and they come back to Rebbe Nachman. 4 hours Shemona Esrei the first night. But he said, I take care of my people the first night of Rosh Hashanah. God forbid somebody has a cancer. Right? There's a very big difference if you nip that cancer in the bud just as it's beginning to develop, or if you wait till it's fully developed, it's a stage 4, and it's terminal, right? Rebbe Nachman works for us from the Rosh Hashanah. As a Rosh B'nai Yisrael, he works for us on Rosh Hashanah in order to be able to nip any problems that we could come up with in the bud. Does that mean any of us don't have problems? I wouldn't say that. Just to put it in perspective, I buried a daughter this year, right? 47-year-old daughter. So I know what it means that there's trouble during the year, right? At the same time, we know that comes Rosh Hashanah, you're going to get the best deal that you can get. The best deal. Rebbe Nachman works for us from the first moment of Rosh Hashanah, working as the Rosh and working to get things done so that we end up with a best possible year because we had the best possible advocate in heaven working on our behalf. But there's a third factor that must be factored in here. And Rebbe Nachman has a short lesson 94 in the second part, Likutei Moharan. He says, there's the Rosh B'nai Yisrael and there's Rosh Hashanah. But every person has to come with their own Rosh. I can't come with your head. I can't come with your ideas. I have to come with me. I have to be there. I have to make sure that I represent myself and I come there and I think about what it is that I need, the needs of my family, the needs of everyone around me, if it's a business, if it's whatever, if I'm a Rebbe and I have Talmidim, if it's, you're a paymaster, you have to pay in a business, you have to cut deals. If it's a question of family and children, you have to take care of them. You have to come with your head. You have to combine your mind and set it aside and put it together with Rebbe Nachman's approach. So that means I let myself go, I nullify myself, and I put myself here I am. What you want to do with me, I'm here for. I'm willing to accept, I'm willing to recognize there is a God, Hashem exists, and I want to get close to Him. I want to join and be together with Him. And here I am. Please help me have that kind of a year. Because it's not just enough, okay, Shema Yisrael in the morning, Shema Yisrael in the evening. The Gemara does say that whoever says Shema Yisrael in the morning and in the evening, it's as if he studied Torah the entire day. It's Gemara and Menachem. Right? But what do you do with the rest of the day? There's 24 hours. Shema takes how long? A minute if you really put kavanah into it. Right? What about the other 23 and something hours? Right? No. The question is to have Hashem in front of you the entire day, entire time. It's not possible. It's automatically not possible. But it's automatic that it can be as good as possible. A good year means a year that I connected with Hashem. How do I leave behind my wife and children? It's a good question. A very tough question. I had a Talmud who had a problem. His child was born with a difficulty, and it was the beginning of Elul, and he was working hard. The wife was in the hospital the whole day, and he was going back and forth. And what do you do? How do you deal with this, right? How do I go to Uman Rosh Hashanah? My wife is in the hospital with the kid is there. How do we take care of this? So I told him, first thing you have to do is make sure that your wife has somebody with her at all times. Hire somebody, make sure she's taken care of, make sure everything can be done, whatnot. Whatever it was, a lot of things I told him, you have to be careful. Take the last flight out, take the first flight back. Right? Make sure that you do whatever you can that she is taken care of. And now I'm going to ask you a question. If you have such a difficulty in your life, how could you afford not to go to Uman Rosh Hashanah? How could you afford not to pray by the Rebbe Rosh Hashanah? How could you afford not to be there on behalf of your wife and children? Well, Hashem, everything worked out. The kid was okay. And Baruch Hashem, they've had many children since then. Point is that leave behind the wife and children. It's never comfortable. Right? Never. Right? They're alone, kiddish. right? Davening in shul, shofar, where do I daven? Where do I go? What about the children? They have to have chinuch too, right? They're also Yidden, right? Sometimes, if the boy is old enough, take the boy along with you, so you're not leaving him behind. But it's not comfortable there in Uman to be there with a small child when there's such a tumult going on. So you have to know when to do that, right? So then leave him behind with the wife. But you're leaving behind the wife, are you? Well, I always ask the question, what would happen if a business deal came up and you know you're going to profit $5 million from this trip? Wouldn't your wife send you for the week to come back with the $5 million? She'll sit with the children for a few days in order to come back with the $5 million. We're not talking here about materialism. We're talking here about Hashem. We're talking here about your connection to Hashem. It's not something that you should make light of. It's not something that you have to leave behind and forget about. And, so you have the week and whatnot. No, you're talking about your spiritual life for an entire year. You're talking about your recognition of Hashem for an entire year. And when you come to Uman, those who have been there could testify to this, it's like no other place in the world. Some people compare it to what it must have been in the Beis HaMikdash. Other people, those who are old enough to remember, will call it's like a Jewish Woodstock. Right? You have all the different players of what it was all about. What is it now, 40, 50 years since Woodstock, something like that? Huh? Exactly 50 years, right? Okay, I remember Woodstock. That's how I can talk about it, right? But I wasn't there, but whatever the story is, what's going on in Uman is going on a revelation of Hashem. Because what you see there's nothing else. There's no Disneyland, there's no amusement park, right? There's no theaters, there's nothing there. Nothing there. You go into the city of Uman, you could imagine that this is how people lived 100 years ago, right? Until a few years ago, the area of the Tzion where we stay now, Rosh Hashanah, until then, there was no running water. You had water an hour in the morning and an hour at night. Otherwise, if you wanted water during the day, you had to go to the corner wells where they would pump water for you. You would have to pump the water and fill your bucket to bring water. This is the city that we're going to, right? The great big Russian Riviera or Ukrainian Riviera, right? Where everything, no, there's nothing there. And yet, 70,000 people came to this wasteland with nothing. They have to worry about food, although Baruch Hashem, Rebbe Nachman does a great job. But people they eat there. What? In the first years, I used to bring every year cans of tuna fish, salami, that would last, right? And a couple of cans of peas and carrots. That's how we used to eat Rosh Hashanah, right? And a box of matzah, so we had lechem mishnah. But when you think about it, today, Baruch Hashem, it's a lot better. But where am I going? For this, I'm leaving my wife and my children and my family and my house. I'm leaving all the comforts of home for what? For a slab of stone in the middle of a yard in Uman? We're leaving because we want to make that connection to Hashem. You see thousands and thousands of people sitting by Rebbe Nachman's gravesite, saying Tehillim, davening. That's it. Young people screaming and yelling, "Oi!" That's what they're doing. Why? They want to come close to Hashem. So the idea of Uman Rosh Hashanah is an idea where you could search and seek a revelation of Hashem for the entire year. That's the first thing to know about Uman. It's a revelation that Hashem exists. Hashem is here. Proof positive. Look at all these people putting everything of their material life aside and coming there to Uman. For what? And that's what it's all about. So, why do I leave my wife and children? A good question. Look what I'm leaving behind. Look where I'm going to. The comforts of home, non-existent. So then what am I going for? I'm going because I want to really experience and feel that there is a God. There is Hashem, that I could relate to Him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Are there any questions on this? Feel free to.
I grew up with fish my whole life.
Hold on. I'm a little hard of hearing. I don't have my hearing aids, right? So you got to speak a little louder and clear.
I grew up with fish, and
my
I
sympathies,
never
yeah.
had any one of my grandfathers or fathers going to any Rosh Hashanah for Uman. Any Rosh Hashanah. I'm asking
Why? When I grew up, it didn't happen either, right? Let me ask you a different question. Are you aware that there are many, many trips these days to Poland, to Russia, to Kivrei Tzadikim? You aware of that?
Rosh Hashanah?
No, the whole year, during the whole year. For Pesach Kron, right? And others, they make trips the entire year to all the Kivrei Tzadikim. True? I mean, including Uman and Mezhebitz. When did you ever hear of that before? You didn't, right? The only ones who used to travel to Kivrei Tzadikim were the Preston. When they traveled to Uman, right, people made fun of us all the time. But today, everyone, Hasidim, Litvaks, everyone, they're all traveling. They go to the Chaim. He's not a Chassid Rebbe. As a Litvak, I can go there, right? They go to the Vilna Goyen, right? But when did all this start? 10 years ago? 15 years ago? Right? The Breslover have been going for how many years? My first trip to Uman was 1965. Before you were born. Maybe before your parents were born. I don't know. But what's happening is that in the last 20, 30 years, it's become more and more common. In the early days, after the war, I remember, people were very poor. People didn't travel like they travel today, right? My first trip to Israel was 1962. Okay, I was a kid, 16 years old. Right? Today, kids this size go to Israel. At that time, parents who had money traveled to Israel. Without the money, they didn't travel. It didn't happen. So this whole thing of travel, everything, is more recent, right? If you're you work in economy, right? You know, today there's something they call the global economy, right? This global economy is something that didn't exist when I was a kid, right? Most of the stuff was grown locally, the fruits and vegetables, right? You had some stuff manufactured elsewhere. A few things were shipped over. Today, the whole world is involved in the same economy, right? It's something that's coming up. Why? I'll just give you a tip of the iceberg why this is happening. It's in my next book, Earning a Living, Earning a Life. I hope it'll be out this winter. But anyway, the Zohar HaKadosh, the Arizal, explained that when Adam Arishon ate from the Eitz Hadas, he ate from the tree, right? So he caused what's called shattering, shviras kelim, shattering of the vessels. Sparks of holiness were spread throughout the world. Throughout the world. Now, Adam Arishon was formed, the Gemara says, in the area that is now Iraq, Bavel. Right? That's where most of his body was formed from. Right? It was taken from all parts of the world, but the main part was in the Middle East. Right? Therefore, you will find that almost all life and history that goes back till about 1,500 years ago was basically Middle East. a little bit spread out into Europe, a little bit Africa, almost nothing, right? You don't hear much about China, even though it was there, right? America, Columbus, whatnot. Why? Because since he was sinned and he erred at that point, so therefore that's where the major sparks were found at that time in order to be rectified. As time went on, the exiles, the Golos, went from place to place to place, were spread out now all over the world. Why? Because of these sparks of holiness. They're called Nitzoitzos HaKadosha, right? They're spread out over the entire globe, and now they're being gathered in. Wherever a Jew goes, the Arizal explains, it's as if the whole nation went there, because we're all part of one nation. So if a Jew ends up in Hollywood, or Bollywood, or in Hawaii, or in Siberia, or in Argentina, or South Africa, wherever they are, right, there are sparks of holiness there. And as we do mitzvahs, we elevate them. And even if the guy is not from, even if he's not from, this is a Gemara of Sochem, I'll come to it in a minute. But even if the guy is not from, if he does something good, he's rectified a spark that's found there. So if he gives a charity, or if he does something that's gemilas chesed, a kindness to somebody else, that also rectifies those sparks. Okay? Today, with the global economy, what it means is that there's sparks all over the world coming around for rectification. That's why travel today has been facilitated by the airplane, right, and whatnot, and people all over, they're always traveling. Today, everyone's traveling. Why? Why are you traveling? Someone told me a good vote once. He said, if you own a car, you can do one of two things. Either you could do Monsey Merkava, you can do like the chariot of Hashem, like Cheskel talks about, the Haftarah of Shavuos, or you can be a balagola, a guy who just runs a wagon. That's all. What you do in your car, you can bring out Hashem. You can do Monsey Merkava. The Merkava is meant the chariot of Hashem to reveal Hashem in the world. That's what it's all about. Okay? So, yes, 30 years ago, you didn't hear about people traveling as much. They traveled. There were more and more people traveling. Today, Baruch Shem, the world is reaching its rectification.
That's not the reason we're going to Uman.
Oh,
We're not going
that's
to
part of the reason. Rebbe Nachman is working from Uman, like the Baal Shem is working from Mezhebitz, and like all the other tzaddikim are working from their place, right? But that's not, but we mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was before you, why Rebbe Nachman said, come to me Rosh Hashanah, because he's a Rosh B'nai Yisrael, and it's Rosh Hashanah, and you're coming with your Rosh. It's a combination of the minds, a joining of the minds to bring everything out so that you could find Hashem every single day of your life. Every Amid and Shul, Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tomid, right? I put Hashem before me always. Is it true? Ask yourself, is it true? Is Hashem always before my eyes? Or I want it to be that way? Yes, definitely, certainly, 100%. I want to have Hashem in front of my eyes 24/7. Doesn't happen that way. But when you come to Uman, you'll begin to glimpse how it's possible. You begin to see people there you can have from the ultra Orthodox down to people who don't believe in Hashem. I've had them there. I've seen them. Right? And yet, they come to Rebbe Nachman, there's somehow some kind of feeling that Hashem really exists. He's real. I could really attach myself to him. Okay? Any questions?
More
than at the Koso?
You'll have to speak louder.
More over there.
Oh,
than
well,
at
that's
the
one of the
Koso?
questions that my son wants me to address. Right? The importance of going, what? I can't even read my handwriting. Importance more than any other place. Right? That's the next question on the list. Right? I can't argue the greatness of being by the Kaisel of Rosh Hashanah. Right? The Gemara says, Medrash, Me'olam lezozo Shechina mikaisel ha'ma'aravi. The Shechina never left the Kaisel ha'ma'aravi. There's an interesting story in Medrash Eicha. The guy who conquered Yerushalayim, second Beis Hamikdash. So he appointed four generals. Each one should destroy a wing of the Beis Hamikdash. You take the east, you take the south, you take the north, and you take the western wall. The other three, like that, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. The guy who was supposed to destroy the western wall, the Kaisel, right, couldn't do it. Could not destroy the Kaisel ha'ma'aravi. So I think it was Titus, I'm not sure it was Titus, but whatever. But he said to him, hey, you got a job to do it. He says, I decided to leave it because people will see the greatness. This kind of a wall was constructed by Shlomo HaMelech, by the second Beis Hamikdash, with such stones and such engineering. People will see it, they'll be amazed at what kind of building you were able to conquer and destroy. So the Roman emperor, whatever, he says to the guy's name was Fangar, Pei Nun Gimel Reish. He was a Palestinian. That's what it says there. It's a Medrash and Eicha. Says to him, you said good. That's a good svara, right? You want people to see the edifice of what's left. But I don't believe you. So I'll tell you what. You climb to the top of the wall and jump off. If you survive, I'll know it's real. He jumped off, he died. But he tried to destroy the western wall, the Kaisel. He couldn't. He couldn't because Chazal say, Me'olam lezozo Shechina mikaisel ha'ma'aravi. The Shechina never left the western wall. It's there all the time. To say that you go to Uman, which is in the land of the Ukrainians, where I travel there about 6 times a year, and I hate every minute that I'm on Ukrainian soil. Because I know, I've read history, the amount of rivers of Jewish blood that are soaked up in the earth in Ukraine. I hate that. I go because Rebbe Nachman said come. But could you compare the Ukrainian Riviera to the Kaisel? What about carryovers? Go to Hebron. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the forefathers of the nation. In the Yalkut Reuveni, he writes that Moshe Rabbeinu was also buried in Hebron. Moras HaMachpelah. Yalkut Reuveni brings it in Pashas V'Zois HaBrocha. But how can you compare Uman to these places? Meron, before Uman was open, the rest of a lot of us used to travel to Meron for Rosh Hashanah. Reb Shimon ben Yochai, Reb Akiva. How could you compare? Why Uman more than any other place? The only answer I can say is that Judaism is founded on emunah, faith. We have to have belief, faith. Faith in Hashem, faith in the Torah, and faith in the tzaddikim. Right? Rebbe Nachman said, come to me, Rosh Hashanah. As we explained in the beginning of the talk, right? Rebbe Nachman said, I will work for you, Rosh Hashanah. There are tikkunim, rectifications for the soul, that even I cannot do the whole year. I can do it on Rosh Hashanah because Rosh Hashanah is the Rosh, the beginning, when the judgments for the year are being put into place. Okay? So at that point, I could work on you, on your soul, to bring you to the recognition that Hashem exists and you could relate to Him. And that's what it's all about. Hashem created Adam Arishan. He didn't give him a Torah. Torah didn't come till some 2,400 years later. How is he supposed to recognize Hashem? Right? Because we're given in our hearts and our minds V'chol ma'aseu be'emunah, Tilum, Lamed Gimel. Right? Everything that Hashem did is with faith. Faith is in every single item of this world. Rebbe Nachman said, come to me. If I believe in Rebbe Nachman, I should go. If I believe, he said to come, I can work for you from here, where he is, to help you in the Neshama. If you don't have that emunah, I can't tell you to go. I will tell you to go, but I can't tell you to go because if you don't have the emunah, what's the sense of going? You have to have emunah. Rebbe Nachman knows what he was talking about. He knew what he was talking about. He knows what he's talking about. And he could present it to you that you could feel Rosh Hashanah, Day of Judgment. Well, let's expand a little bit on this. A din is a judgment, a constriction, right? The din says you do it this way, you do it this way. A din, a judgment against a person, limits his ability to do certain things. And then there's chesed. Chesed is expanded. Chesed means it goes out and expands and it spreads, okay, all over. Rosh Hashanah is called a din, or Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur are called Aseres Yemei Din, 10 days of judgment. What's the concept of the din? Well, can you look at the Atlantic Ocean and take it all in one sight? No, too big. You've got to kind of minimize it, minimize its ability, its appearance, its size, and I can look at it in bits, tidbits. I can look at it that way. I can't look at the big picture. Hashem is all over. I can't picture Hashem all over. It's hard. Malay chalor, it's kvoida. You say kedusha, right? Kodosh, kodosh. Malay chalor, it's kvoida. The earth is filled with His glory. Do you see it? No. You don't see it because the time hasn't come yet. It will come when Mashiach comes. But till then, what you have to do is make a constriction, a din, a judgment type, where you're constricting your view to see how you could relate to Hashem. And that's the purpose of Rosh Hashanah. And that's the purpose Rebbe Nachman wants us to come to him, so that if we get to Uman, the importance there is that it'll be given to us in bite sizes so that we'll be able to absorb it. You take a kid who looks at Shas, oh wow, I want this. Okay? See him a Shas coming up. I want Shas. But could you take it in one day? No, the Vilna Gaon was a kid before his bar mitzvah. One Shmini Atzeres, Simchus Torah at night, right? He sat and learned. Someone was visiting the city. He saw this little kid learning Zvachim. Comes back a little while later. The guy is 10, 15 blot ahead. Another 15, 20. He finished that night Zvachim and Menachos in one night. So the guy thought it's a joke. Kid. He started for herring the Vilna Gaon. He knew every bit of it. Right? He was the Vilna Gaon. Right? How many of us could do that? How many of us could do that with Shabbos or brachos or with Hurrius, which is only 14 blocks, right? How many of us could do that? Sit down one night, learn the whole, and know it, right? No. The knowledge has to come in a tzimtzum, in a constriction. And that's what Rosh Hashanah is all about. It's a constriction. It constricts the knowledge that today is Hashem and you're on trial for nothing less than your life. All right? Nothing less than your life. Am I going to start thinking of all the business deals I'm in the middle at that moment? Am I going to start thinking of all the other things that I want for my children, for my family? I'm thinking of the future? Or am I going to constrict it to what's happening now? That's the idea of the constriction. That's the idea of Rosh Hashanah. And Rebbe Nachman says, come to me, Rosh Hashanah. He wants you to be able to focus on what's happening. Okay? Any questions?
That's actually my question.
A little louder.
I thought about it a lot to come to Rosh Hashanah. If I have problems concentrating in big crowds, I go to I lived in Israel, I lived around, and I just feel that the crowd, I won't be able to concentrate, really get my tefillah in a real way.
Chaim, it's book Tzaddik in English. Someone came to Rebbe Nachman and said to him, I'd rather not come Rosh Hashanah, I'd rather come Shabbat Shuvah or some other day. When there's less people, it's less crowded, I feel I'll be able to concentrate better. Rebbe Nachman said to him, Your davening, nit davening, I'll explain Yiddish in a minute. Your essen, nit essen, your schlafen, nit schlafen, abi sein bei mir Rosh Hashanah. He says, whether you will daven or not, whether you'll eat or not, whether you'll sleep or not, doesn't matter. But be by me Rosh Hashanah. I hate crowds too. I'm from the original crowds over there, when it was only 1,000 people or whatnot. I hate the crowds. Believe me, I hate the crowds. Right? I shy away from all that. At the same time, one of the most beautiful scenes you will ever see in your life is how this variations of humanity are all there seeking one thing. Hashem. Right? It's hard to concentrate. Well, frankly, I would imagine, it's an opinion, that if you have trouble concentrating, you're going to have trouble concentrating in your regular shul anyway. I would imagine that's the story. Maybe it'll be a little bit easier, maybe not. But there are smaller minyanim. There are minyanim in Uman, a few thousand people. Some have a few hundred people. There are smaller minyanim too. So if you just concentrate on what you're saying in the davening, right, you'll be able to find a small enough minyan where you'll be able to concentrate and be there in Uman Rosh Hashanah. We have a place, we call it the Uman Ritz Carton. Not Carlton, Carton. C-A-R-T-O-N, right? That's our place. We have place for you there. You'll be comfortable. You'll have food. We have our own shul, right? You'll be able to do it. Take the opportunity. Jump in. And you'll see that it's an experience, even if you do it only once in your life, but it's something you'll be able to tell your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren what an amazing experience it was. All right? Okay, we got a deal? Tzvi, sign them up. Okay. All right? Any questions? Yeah?
I'm trying to understand a little. Rebbe Nachman was nifter. His neshama is ruchni, so it's not limited dafka to Uman. His place of ptira, I know he wanted to be nifter there. Why is it Not why, I'm not asking why they wanted to be nifter there, but why is it that this tikkun you could do dafka there and not there?
Rebbe Nachman was sick with tuberculosis. He knew he was dying. He chose to die in the city of Uman. He says, from there, Rebbe Nachman writes, Yimei Marnat, that was the place chosen for him from Sheshi Shemei Bereshis. Now that may seem a little extreme, but it's a Gemara in Soita, the first page in Masechta Soita. When a person is born, 40 days before he's born, there's a bas kol that goes out and says, Bas Pliny the Pliny, your shidduch, this one will be a shidduch with this one, right? That's a very famous Gemara. But the Gemara has three things, two other things there. The second thing is Bayis Pliny the Pliny. Where you're going to live is also written down before you're born. And then the Gemara says, Soda Pliny the Plinus, this field is for that person, right? Field, meaning that that's where you're going to have your panosa, you're going to toil the land and whatnot. But I have always explained it as Soda, the field where you're going to be buried, is also written down before you're born, right? Which you'll find many people pass away in a city that was foreign to them and they ended up being buried there. Why? They didn't live there. Why should they want to bring them back home? But that's it. Rebbe Nachman chose to be buried in Uman. Rebbe Nachman, before he passed away, was looking out at the city of Uman, and he said to his Talmidim, Du wird sich ton de rechts chevle Moshiach. Here, in this Ukraine, is going to be the worst birth pangs of Mashiach. The worst birth pangs. If you're familiar with history, you know that the Germans invaded Ukraine, right? Whatever the Germans did in Poland, which was the death camps and whatnot, but they had the Eisen's-Group that used to go around shooting people or gassing them in vans and whatnot. And aside from that, was the Germans killed them physically. Stalin killed the Jews spiritually. He rid the entire Ukraine was Yiddish, was from. Right? We met a Yid in Mezhevitz once. He looked at us, a couple of guys with beards. He says, I thought that the entire Jewry was wiped out in the Second World War. Because what Hitler didn't destroy, Stalin destroyed. So that the worst pangs of Mashiach were the death sentences of Hitler and Stalin to Judaism. Right? Okay? So, Uman is in the middle of the Ukraine. Rebbe Nachman chose to be buried there. Now, as far as the inyan of a kever of a tzaddik, you have Chumash and Rashi. Kolev went to carryovers to daven for a Yeshua, right? So it's not a new custom to go to Kivri Tzadikim. Kolev ben Yefuna did it, all right? But the Gemara also talks about Kivri Tzadikim. Guar Kod the Reb Chia, right? Reb Yochanan, the Amora, wanted to see Reb Chia. You see, looked in heaven, you could see the cheer of Reb Chia, but you're not allowed to look at it. Right? He went to Reb Chia's grave, and he became blind, whatever. He got his eyesight back. There, you have a medrash, you have different things about Kivrei Tzadikim. Where they're buried is a very special place. Right? The pasuk says, Tzadikim yirshu oretz. The Tzadikim inherit Eretz Yisrael. Right? So that wherever the Tzadikim are buried, it has the same sanctity as Eretz Yisrael. Right? You go to Rashi in France, Rebbe Nachman in Germany, yeah? It's Eretz Yisrael when you're by their grave. And that's why it's important to go to the grave. I'll add on to this an explanation that Rebbe Nachman says. The Gemara says, "G'dolim tzadikim b'misosam yosem b'chayayim." Tzadikim are greater after they pass away than they are during their lifetime. It's more brachos, right? Okay. So, what's the greatness? That they could accomplish a lot more and do for you what they couldn't do while they were embodied in the physical sense. Okay? Rebbe Nachman says, though, look at it the other way. You go to the caver of a tzaddik and you pray there. Right? What have you done? You've gone, you've prayed. Is that it? Says, the Pasuk says, Chazal tell us, Nesati l'chol malachim bein ha'oimdim ha'ela. The beginning is the Chaim. I'll give you an ability to walk among those who stand. What's this talking about? All the Svarim explain that a malach is an oimid. He stands on one level his entire time. Right? A human being, because of the mitzvahs that we do, can go from level to level to level. So we're always walking. We're always walking. But that's as many mitzvahs you did during your lifetime. When you pass away, hey, there you are. Whatever you accomplish, you accomplish. That's what you bring with you to the world to come. Right? So you can only walk as far as your mitzvahs will take you. Okay? But when you go to the grave of a tzaddik, what you've done is you've asked the tzaddik to come down and receive your prayers to bring it up to Hashem. Right? Right? Okay? So, Rebbe Nachman explains that when you do that, you're doing the tzaddik a favor. Because as far as he can go in heaven, he can only go so far. But when you bring him back to this world, and he's helping another Jew, then he can go even further in heaven. So now, it turns out that you went to the tzaddik to daven, but the tzaddik now owes you. How do you like that? Right? The tzaddik now owes you. It's amazing. But that's what it is. Okay? Any questions on this? Nobody here? Questions? Okay? So, I'm like Eichmann. My son gives me orders, I have to answer them, whatever. What do I gain? What do I gain by going to Uman? Right? What gain do I have? The gain is that you were created to know Hashem. Right? The Zohar says the whole world was created, begin to yishtamoidinle, that people should get to know Hashem. Okay? How many of us here went through a yeshiva, or Beis Yaakov, whatever? We went through yeshiva. Did you find Hashem? I shouldn't ask these questions. Right? But did you find Hashem? Did they teach you Hashem? Did they teach you that Hashem exists? Did they? You know, they tried to, but they thought, abstract, whatever. But did they make Hashem real? Right? Rebbe Nachman, when he was a kid, he had trouble learning. Why? Because he always wanted to fulfill Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Summit. Hashem is opposite me all the time. So when he would think about that, and the Melamed would try to teach him, he couldn't hear the Melamed because he was trying to picture Hashem in front of him. But how many Melamedim teach you about Hashem? When you went to high school and you graduated, maybe with honors, and maybe you went on to university, how many people taught you about Hashem? Sometimes you're fortunate, you pray in the shul where the rabbi is good, and he mentions Hashem once in a while during the drasha, right? Sometimes, so there is Hashem. Sometimes we're fortunate for that. But how many of us really are taught about Hashem? The gain you have is an understanding that Hashem exists. Hashem was the Chabad song. Hashem is here. Hashem is there. Hashem is always everywhere, right? He is, right? Up, up, down, down, right, left, and all around. That's where Hashem is found. But that's where Hashem is found. How many of us bump into a situation and many of the words are not the cleanest words that we would like to say because of this foul situation? Sometimes we say, oh, this is nice, Baruch Hashem, and then we go further. But how many of us internalize Hashem? And that's, I challenge anyone here. We'll be in touch in December, Hanukkah, right? Come to Uman, right? And I'll speak to you in December and tell me that you haven't found a greater awareness of Hashem. Because that's what you're going to get. Hashem is always there. Lahavdil Alfei Alofim. Let's go off track for a minute. Anyone here ever hear of Winston Churchill? Yeah? You ever heard? A brilliant guy. Right? He said once, everybody during their lifetime stumbles across the truth. Everybody stumbles across the truth. 99% of the people pick themselves up and just keep on going. You just stumbled on the truth. The truth is here. But they get up and they keep on going. Right? You come to Uman, you have a different perspective of what life is all about. You have a different perspective of what Judaism is all about. You have a different perspective of what you can accomplish in your lifetime. Of what you, me, whoever you are, I can do this. Right? There was a little train that said, I can, right? Whatever. I can do this. I can accomplish. I can get to where I want to go. That's what you'll get from us. You have a question?
I went to Uman.
Huh?
I went to Uman.
Yeah. You don't find it that way?
I mean, I think it's inspiring to do any fever.
A lot of.
I think it's inspiring to dive into any fever on the side. I can find something different here than going to a different farm.
You didn't have the right teacher to tell you what to look for.
My husband teaches me all the time.
Well, you have a good husband, but it'll happen. It'll happen. All right. Any questions on this? Any questions? Okay. The next question that he wants me to address is, do I need the tumult that goes on there? Do I have to have this tumult? Right? Or could I maybe live with a little quiet, peace? Do I have to go that way? Well, Rebbe Nachman taught, it's a Gemara actually in Yevomus. The Gemara says that Ein mekablim gerim li'emois HaMashiach. When Mashiach will come, we won't accept converts. Why? Because then we're al hagova, as they say in Hebrew. Well, we're on top. Everyone sees this is the top. I want the top. So they won't be able to be accepted as converts when Mashiach comes. And then the Gemara says, "K'moi should be made David and Shlomo." In the time of David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech, they also didn't accept converts, because then the Jews were on top of the world. Rebbe Nachman says that in order, well, we just mentioned about the truth. If you want to accept the truth, you want to find the truth, you want to feel the truth, right? You have to put in your effort to really seek that truth. You have to put in that effort, right? If it comes very easy to you, then it's not honest, right? It's something that comes too easy, it's not honestly gained. There's no honest gain there. There's a struggle. Life is a struggle. I mean, after all, the first day of creation, right? Adam ate from the tree, right? And Hashem said to him, okay, you could have stayed in the garden and had whatever you had handed on a silver platter. Now you're going to go through a struggle. Now you're going to have to struggle through life. So if you have to struggle, then you have gain. No pain, no gain. Is that what they say? Right? No pain, no gain. The idea of going to Uman, there's a lot of things there that could be distracting too. Whereas I'm fond of saying, every year when I give the shiur Rosh Hashanah, I always see new faces. And I say, I'll bet you couldn't imagine the joy and happiness that you see here. The dancing and the singing, right? It's ecstasy. It's really, really ecstasy. Problem is that half of that ecstasy comes from ecstasy. Right? That's the problem. It comes from there. There's a lot of people there, drugs. You're going to have a lot of problems. There's a tumult. There are things there that could distract you from Yiddishkeit. There are things there that are not quite in order. It's kind of what you call the smoke that conceals the beauty of the mountains, right? And that's why over there in Uman we have all these problems. We have people. It's like a mask that's coming to conceal Rebbe Nachman, the greatness of what you can really get out of it. That's the problem that we have. Go, there's a tumult. I hate the tumult. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. I can't stand the crowds. It's a pain in the neck, right? I'm not a football player anymore. When I was younger, I could work my way through the crowd. Today, I have difficulty, right? I'm over 70, so I know what it means. Whatever the case is, when you start looking at the tumult that's there and how it obscures Rebbe Nachman, and if you learn to focus and you look straight ahead, there's Rebbe Nachman here, I'm going to make my connection so that I can find out what life is all about, what Hashem is there to teach me about. And you have that, there's no question at all that it's worth it to experience the tumult, experience the problems, right, and until you find where you're going. Loud.
Okay. Three questions. Number one, the Rabbi keeps on saying that going to Uman, the person will come, will understand Hashem, will get close to Hashem. Is there something specific that a person has to do to get that experience, or simply going there, doing the tefillas, and just being part of the shiur? That experience is what the Rabbi referred to. That a person will get a closeness to Hashem. Three questions. That's question number one. Question number two.
Better hope that I remember them.
Okay.
I experienced senior moments.
Question number two. I think I've seen somewhere, maybe based on what I'm saying, it's not accurate, that the Nachman said Erev Rosh Hashanah, but it sounds like the Rabbi is saying tonight that Leil Rosh Hashanah is.
Okay.
And then the third question is, if you're 70,000 people, is there really an opportunity to get close to the Kramer and to dominate, to get that connection to Nachman that would be such a strong, powerful, impact to the person?
Okay. Go over the first question again. I'm sorry.
The first question was to get this special.
Do we need something special?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there something specific?
Rabbi Nachman said, you come to my gravesite, say the 10 chapters of Tehillim, which are called the Tikkun HaKoli, and give a little bit to tzedakah, right? If you want to give to BRI, you can give a lot. But you come to the grave, that's what you have to do to get Rebbe Nachman's promise. But whatever you do there, if it's saying Tillim, if it's learning, if it's just having its poidudus and talking to Hashem, any one of these things that you do, the more you do it, the more you're investing, and every investment has its return. Okay? So there's nothing specific except for saying the Tikkun HaKoli and giving a few coins for tzedakah. Okay? That's one. The second thing is
Erev Rosh Hashanah.
Erev Rosh. Rebbe Nachman said, others with andere Volt gewünschen Azar Rosh Hashanah wie bei mir Erev Rosh Hashanah. Other tzaddikim would like to have by them a Rosh Hashanah like you see by me Erev Rosh Hashanah. Okay? Why is that? Go to the Tzion. Go to Uman. Stand by the Tzion Erev Rosh Hashanah. Just watch what happens. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people are standing there davening the whole day. Do you see that any place else in the world with such preparation for Rosh Hashanah? Will you see it? Litvish world? Right? You said that before? No, you won't see it in the Chassidish world either. Yeah, everyone prepares for Rosh Hashanah. But what's the preparation in Breslov? Davening, praying, screaming, yelling, Hashem, where are you? How can I come close to you? Whatever. That you'll see in Breslov. Okay? In Uman, by the Breslov. Okay? The third thing was, do I have to get to the Tzion with so many people? Right. First of all, Erev Rosh Hashanah, after Chatzos, or around Chatzos, what they have now, they established it a few years ago, thank God, is that they have Shem, gods, that they allow you to pass by the Tzion. You line up and you'll go. Go in, go out. There's a way to go in and out. Otherwise, unless you're a football player, like I said before, I'm not, you got to fight your way. Stand there, go close to the Tzion, wait. One guy will finally leave. You'll worm your way in, another one. You can get there if you want. If you stand there for a while, be prepared for it. And be prepared for what they call pushing and shoving, right? It's part of the experience. But Erev Rosh Hashanah, they have in the early afternoon, they have a setup where anyone who wants can come and pass by the Tzion to be in touch with it. I traveled to Uman about 10 days before Rosh Hashanah, so I can get my chance and my time in without the crowds. That's what I do. Right? But I hope that answers your question.
So is Erev Rosh Hashanah more important than Rosh Hashanah?
To be in Uman with Rebbe Nachman, the Rebbe said to be by him Rosh Hashanah. But you obviously cannot be in Uman Rosh Hashanah if you're not there Erev Rosh Hashanah. Just can't be. Right? And there's a certain feeling of being with the crowd on Rosh Hashanah that's very special. Very special. And I thank Hashem every time in my life that I merited to be there. It was special. Right? Okay, I'm convinced, you don't have to convince me, but I feel it. And I thank Hashem for every time it happens. Are there any questions? Yeah, okay. Where is
it written when Rebbe Nachman says to come to Rosh Hashanah? Because I haven't looked for that quote.
you have the book Tzaddik? Yossi, you here? I don't know if we have it back there. It's there in the book Tzaddik. It's paragraph 403, 404, 405, 406. In that book. It's there. All right? And it's written in other places here and there, but that's the main source for it. Rebbe Nachman said, come to me, Rosh Hashanah. He said, if you believed in me, you would go out and make a public announcement. Anyone who believes in Rebbe Nachman should be by him Rosh Hashanah. It's one of those paragraphs there. But it's in those paragraphs. What happened to Yossi? All right, whatever. But it's there. All right? If you want, give me your email. When I get back to Eretz Israel, I'll scan the quote and I'll send it to you. All right? Any questions? Any other questions? Huh? That's it? Should we sign you all up? You're signed already. You're signed already. Any questions? Please feel free.
How do you differentiate between
Louder.
How do you differentiate between religious fervor, which automatically gets you into that cult, no matter where you are, really? I get there's special stuff over there, and what more does the tzaddik do that you don't find anywhere else? With the neshama, because, as you said, many people have a very difficult year, so you're not really going to see that benefit. Even though it could always be worse, but you don't know that. You don't look at it as, I really had a better year. Sometimes you go to Uman, it could possibly be a worse year than the year before.
If it's possible, it's worse. It's in the material sense. It's not in the spiritual sense. Right? But
why is it so incumbent?
Listen, Rebbe Nachman has a lesson 4 in the Kuta Moran. He says, did you ever notice once in a while that a person all of a sudden starts davening with a tremendous fervor? And he says a few words with such gewaltige connection to Hashem. What happened? Hashem opened up for him at that point the light, his light, to be able to bring the person, to say those words. Okay? Hashem opened up the light. You have to struggle to get that light open for you. I knew Breslova, Shriai, Lippel, Yitzhak Bender. They used to say that they would go every day to Rebbe Nachman's gravesite. They lived in Uman before the war. And they would go every day. Once in a while, they would come back from the Tzion and say, today the Rebbe let me in. That means when they got to the Tzion that day, somehow the tefillahs poured out. It doesn't always happen. As I said, I go a few times a year. Right? There are times, Baruch Shem, I feel the connection. There are times I sit there like a block of wood. That's not my business. I have to go. And I have to try and arouse myself to daven well. It doesn't always work. Right? Try it every day. Every day you daven, right? Right? Every day do you feel that power? Right? Okay? You have to work on it. There are times it'll come to you. There are times not. How do you have that fervor? Right? Pray to Hashem. Pray to Hashem. I'll like the Sarah Mashkim said, is chatoe ani mazkir hayom. My sins I will elaborate on today. Okay? I'll tell you a little story about myself, just for the heck of it. Right? I was 16 and a half. It was 1962. Not too many people here look old enough to remember the Cuban crisis, the Bay of Pigs, right? But it was a time when Cuba had missiles aimed at the United States. Right? It was Kennedy, they had a blockade, whatever happened. It was very, very scary times. Nuclear war on American soil. I'm a kid, 16 and a half, and I said to myself, you know what? You know what I don't have? I have no entrance to the world to come. What do I have? What am I? The Gemara says whoever walks 4 amos in Eretz Yisrael is guaranteed a place in the world to come. So I said I want to go to Eretz Yisrael. Okay? I want to go to Eretz Yisrael. If you know what the world looked like then, nobody traveled. We mentioned it earlier. People didn't travel in those days, right? A charter flight to Israel, a charter flight that was laid out and worked on hard and whatnot, right, cost $600. Today it's like $6,000. You want to fly to Eretz Yisrael in 1962? $6,000. Okay? Where do you get that kind of money? I never worked a day in my life. I was 16 and a half, right? The only one in my family who had ever been there was my grandfather, who had retired. So he was able to go. How do I get there? My aunts, my uncles, my mother. How did they get? I came home one day from yeshiva, and I said to my mother, Allahu Shalom, may she forgive me. I said, I want to go to Summit Eretz Yisrael. I'm going to go. She looked at me like I'm from Mars, or maybe further out. And no way. No way this is going to happen. And I said, I'm going. I took a job for Pesach. I worked in a store, earned a few $100. I had some money that from my bar mitzvah that my family wisely invested in the stock market. If you check the records, in May 1962, the stock market crashed, right? So there you go, my money from the bar mitzvah. But I put together a few $100, and I said, I'm going. How do you do this? All right? So I took on my entire family. I said, I'm going. No. Yeah, no, what's this business? Why do you want to go? What's burning you? I want to walk Dalet Amos in Eretz Yisrael. All right? Rightfully, my mother wanted me to go to a psychiatrist. Right? The guy's nuts. You want to walk Dalet Amos in Eretz? That's why you're going to Eretz with this kind of money. You're a 16-and-a-half-year-old. What's going on? All right? So this is the way it was for 6 weeks in the family. Right? I won't say I became a pariah, but I was looked upon very askance, right? By the family. It was crazy. Anyway, 6 weeks forward, I'm coming home from yeshiva that night, and I felt I needed the money the next morning for the ticket. Otherwise, they closed the registration. So I'm walking home, and I'm feeling the money in my pocket. I have it. Baruch Hashem, I felt great. I came home. My entire family was there. Right? They sat me down on the couch in the living room, in the corner, and they all sat around me. The Gemara says Sanhedrin sat around like a half circle, a half moon, right? They all sat around me. Now, what's going on with you? What's this? What's that? You want to go down? I mean, you had to look at the absurdity of the situation. It was really crazy. I said, I have to go. And they're arguing back and forth, talking. They're asking me questions. After about a half hour, I said, enough is enough. I said this to myself. This is crazy. I said, well, what's this? What are they doing? I have to go. So I shut out my family. They were all sitting around. I shut them out. I turned to Hashem, and I said, Hashem, I want to cry. Hashem, I want to cry. And I sat there for about 7-8 minutes, whatever. I don't remember the time exactly. But about 7-8 minutes, and I said, Hashem, I want to cry. And they're talking to me, and I'm talking to Hashem. Doesn't matter what they're saying. Hashem, I want to cry. After about 7-8 minutes, I started crying. I was crying. Hashem, the Gemara says, there are times that the Shari Tefillah, the gates of prayer, are closed. But the gates of tears are never closed. I'm crying now. I'm crying. I want to go to Eretz Yisrael. The gates are never closed. I want to go to Eretz Yisrael. I don't know what happened out there, but a few minutes later, they walked out of the room, all of them. And about 5 minutes after that, they came back in. Here's your check. And I went. You want to arouse that fervor? Cry to Hashem. Just talk to him. Hashem, I want to cry. All right? Stupid me, I didn't use that my whole life. I should have. I learned the power of it. I didn't do it. But there are times I have done it. And when I did it, it always worked. You want that fervor? Cry. You can't cry? Hashem, I want to cry. Just sit there and say, Hashem, I want to cry. Say it again. And again. And again. Eventually, your heart will open up. And you're going to find a connection to Hashem that you never imagined was possible. Okay? Myra? Do we have tzaddik here? No. I don't think so.
Do you talk to the Rebbe or do you talk to Hashem?
You can talk to the Rebbe as if the Rebbe is alive, standing in front of you. You cannot pray to the Rebbe. That we call that avodah zarah. Right? You can talk to Hashem, pray to Hashem. You can talk to the Rebbe as if he's alive. You and me are talking. Talk to the Rebbe as if he's alive. Do not pray to him. Do not. It borders on avodah zarah.
Can you ask him to pray for us?
Yeah, for sure.
And how about confession? Vidin Dvarim, one of the 4 things to do.
Yeah, you confess to him.
To him?
You can confess before him. I mean, you're confessing to Hashem that you did these things. You're confessing before the tzaddik. That's all. Why? Did you ever read Chumash in Rashi? When they brought a korban, right? You confess then. The kohen is there. You're confessing before Hashem with the kohen standing there. Okay? Any questions?
Yeah, so,
This is my son's fee. You can sign up with.
well, before I get there, so I was saying, I lived in both America and Israel. I'm very close with the Orthodox.
Oh, I want to watch.
I know him from